Okay, so we get started. So we start as usual with prayers. Om Jnanam Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी विचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चादेशतारिणे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Thanks for joining Hemant ji and Sanat Shri Siddharth ji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Hare. Oh, I hear Tejal ji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I am here today. He's just coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you,
today we are going to discuss one of the, you can say, very important and often asked how to overcome lust, anger, greed, right? So if you recall in chapter 3, so far we discussed about the karma, action, then vikarma, prohibited action, akarma, which is the action which does not produce fruitive result. It's basically akarma is any activity done for the pleasure of the Lord Krishna. That's called also devotional service. And karma yoga, as we discussed, talks about doing action which unites one super soul, which unites the soul with the super soul. So karma yoga is basically doing any action for the pleasure of the Lord, right? That's karma yoga. And then we also discussed in last class about the cycle of karma, how a living entity gets entangled in the cycle of karma, because it's a ever-going cycle and living entity cannot sit idle. So we every minute are doing some action, and that action itself binds one to this material world. Because we discussed that if we do action which is pious, like shubh, right? Shubh, ashubh. In Hindi we say shubh karma, ashubh. Shubh means pious, good. Ashubh means impious. Both of them are not good for a living entity, because both of them binds the living entity to the material world. Because to enjoy the results of good karma, we have to come again and again in this material world. And also to suffer the results of bad karmas, we also have to take birth again and again in this material world. So both are not good. Then Lord Krishna says, what is good is if you do karma yoga, which is action in Krishna consciousness. Same karma yoga, but with the motive of pleasing the Lord Krishna and with the consciousness of pleasing the Lord. That becomes a karma, which basically means devotional service or bhakti, and that does not produce good or bad result. It produces spiritual credits, which makes one eligible to go back to the original homes, spiritual world. Okay. So today we will just discuss about these three things. Now, three, no more than that actually, but these three are important: lust, anger, greed. Then there is pride, and then there is more. Like, so why these happen, and what is the first, and how to overcome these? This is very important because these are considered, Lord Krishna says, these are stumbling blocks on the path of progress, both in material life as well as in spiritual life. They are both stumbling blocks. We all know nobody wants to be having these anarthas or unwanted things, but somehow or the other, they are present to different degrees in every living entity. Whoever is present on this material creation, it's the reason they are present because they have this unwanted things, anarthas. The moment these goes away, your heart, you will become, one becomes pure, and then they go to the spiritual world. The Nitya Siddhas or eternally liberated living entities who are in spiritual world don't have this lust, anger, greed, or any of these things. Okay. Before we start, is there any question from last class or from last to last class, or any so far whatever we covered? Any questions about the karma? No? Okay, great. So in this chapter 3, Arjun asked very intelligent question, and you may be also having similar question. Let me read his question that sets the context of today's class. Yeah, this is the question. So we all know that what is good, what is bad. The super soul which is sitting in our heart tells us that this is good or this is not good, right? Everyone has that sense of feeling, like from the heart itself, we knows that this action is not good, this is bad. So Arjun asked very important question that, O descendant of Vrishni, by what one is impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. So he's saying what compels one to act sinfully, even though he understands that this is a sinful act, this is not good, but still people do it, right? People are as if that they are engaged by force. Someone is forcing them to act sinfully. So he's saying, what is that force? Or what is that impelling everyone to act sinfully? And we have seen, like, in everyone knows that drinking liquor is not good, or smoking is not good. It's not good for material health also, but it's not good spiritually also. You have to suffer by going to the hell. But still, people are drinking, people are smoking. Even on the packet of cigarette, it's written smoking is injurious to health. But people who buy reads it label, but they still act sinfully, right? So what is it, that force which is causing one to act sinfully? So this is a very important question which Arjun asked on our behalf, right? Because here you see, like, everyone is, as I was saying, 99.9% people, unknowingly or knowingly, they are acting sinfully. And then to suffer those reactions of sinful act, they have to go to the hellish planets and then suffer there for a long time. And when their suffering is there, then they are thrown into the lower species of life, and then they again evolve. Let's say you go to a plant kingdom, so you go through all the species of plant, then you go to all the animal species, and then maybe after millions of years, millions and millions of years, you may get another opportunity to become a human, right? And then even in human form, we have different 400,000, 400,000 species, and with different consciousness. So coming to this level where we are able to read Bhagavad Gita is not easy. It's very, very durlabh. It says Manushya Janma, it says in Shastra, Durlabh Janma, something like that. That is very, very durlabh to get the human form. And in that human form, it's even more rare to read or to get this taste of associating with saintly minded people or listening to that. Because even we see in human form, how many 6 billion people are there on human form in this earth, right? 6 billion. Now you can count like only maybe 1% or point some percent are practicing bhakti. All others are simply just leading the life same as animal, right? So even after getting the human form, it's very, very rare to get the association of devotees. First of all, to get that, you can say, knowledge that I have to approach spirituality. I have to understand why I have come in this material world, why everyone is suffering. So those kind of questions, it's very, very rare. That's what I want to say. So once you have that, then we have to nurture that. So let's go back to this question. So let's see what Krishna has to answer, right? Because Lord Krishna is very, very expert. He has all the answers to all the questions. And that's why he says Bhagavad Gita has answers to all the questions which one can think of. So here Lord Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamesha Krodesha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahasano Mahapapma Vidhi Enam Iha Verinam. So he says, Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world. Okay, so lust. So let's first understand what is lust. Okay, in the spiritual world, there is no lust, there is love. Everyone is love. Now that love which is there in the spiritual world, it gets transformed into lust when a living entity comes into the material world. So lust is, I would say, any desire which is devoid of pleasing Krishna and which is done for pleasing our senses or pleasing our family members or pleasing us or pleasing our nation. So any desire which we had, which is devoid or which does not have Lord Krishna or his devotees in consideration, is considered lust. Okay, that is the broader definition of lust. And whole world, later Krishna talks about that this lust only, which is actually the cause of our existence in material world. Because with lust, see here how it is born. It is born of contact with material mode of passion. So we discussed that there are three modes of material nature: ignorance, passion, and goodness. So when we come in contact with mode of passion, which is Rajogun, then the lust comes. This lust is there in everyone's heart, in everyone. And then when that lust remains unsatisfied, it becomes into wrath. Wrath is basically anger. Okay. And then these two are the sinful enemy of the whole world. This is what causes one to act sinfully, even though they understand that this act is sinful, but they are kind of forced to act like that. Okay, let's read a little bit about this. Maybe I can ask someone. Venkat Prabhu, you want to read this? This is important. That's why I'm reading this.
Sure, Prabhu, I can read. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yeah, lead from here, purport.
When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in the other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns to wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the highest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into modes of ignorance, is elevated to the modes of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment.
Just hold, just here. That's all. That's all. It's a big, but this is the crux of this statement. Prabhupada very nicely explained that all the living entities have this eternal love for Krishna, but when it comes in contact with material nature, particularly with the mode of passion, the same love is transformed into lust, right? And then when that lust remains unsatisfied, it transforms into anger. And that anger is transformed into illusion, and that illusion is the cause of our material existence. Okay, and that is what causes everyone to act helplessly, to just because they are now driven by their senses, and then they just act helplessly in this mode of ignorance, and the exhibition of anger and all those are kind of, we know it's not good. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. Now he will say, as fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Okay, the key thing is that every living entity is covered by different degrees. So you may see some people are very aggressive, and then very sensitive. If you say something, they may get immediately agitated, right? And some are very, you can say, shant, meaning very calm, quiet, nice, like they don't care. So what is it that makes one too much aggressive and immediately they get angry? It's this degree of lust. So if the degree of this lust is higher, then one basically needs will have a higher sense of false ego, which we call, right, this person is having too much ego. He gets immediately hurt. So because with this lust, this false ego comes, so he has a higher degree of false ego, and same like that comes into action, and he immediately becomes angry. While if this lust is on the lower side, then people does not get agitated very easily. And one who has achieved perfection, spiritual perfection, you may see certain sadhus in India particularly, they don't care. Particularly some Babajis are there, they don't care even if people abuse them or criticize them or throw even stones on them, they don't care, they just move on. So that means they have overcome all this unwanted things, lust, anger, greed, everything. They don't even care. They are fully connected with the Lord, and they enjoy so much in that Lord association that they forget about their external behavior, external clothing, everything. Okay, so here in this, Lord Krishna is talking about the different degrees of lust. Okay, let's read now next. Then he says, thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So this is the quality of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So like fire, if you keep putting fuel, it keeps on increasing. So let me read a little bit here. It is said in Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. So as I was saying, lust is any desire which is done for material sense enjoyment or material satisfaction, which is devoid of Lord Krishna or devoid of bhakti. That is lust. So the more you enjoy or try to enjoy, the more this lust increases and it does not get satisfied. It says, no matter how much you have, how much wealth you have, how much resources you have to enjoy, but you will never become satisfied within your heart. That's why we see even millionaires and billionaires in this world, they are still not satisfied, right? They are hankering for more and more and more and more and more wealth, right? But still satisfaction is not there, because the satisfaction is the symptom of the soul, and soul will never get satisfied by any degree of sense enjoyment or any degree of material enjoyment. Only thing which makes a soul happy is when one engages his senses in the service of the Lord. That's the constitutional position. I was giving another example last time, that fish is there in the pond or water. That's his natural position where the fish remains happy. Now you take out a fish and put her in a big palace, golden palace, and serve her nice plate of food, placed in golden plate, but that won't make fish happy, right? Same is our case. So our constitutional position is to be always in contact with Super Soul, to be engaged in serving the Super Soul or serving Lord Krishna. That one makes one happy. The happiness is a symptom of soul. It's coming from soul. Now everyone is trying to engage his or her energy in acquiring the material things, be it house or car or any other thing which attracts, right, the senses, going to movies, all these things. So these are just, it may give you some temporary happiness or enjoyment, so-called happiness. That's not even happiness, but it's temporary. But the more you do, the more your lust for these things keeps increasing more, but you will never become satisfied. Okay. An example is given that as the fire is never extinguished by constant supply of fuel, same way, the lust is not satisfied by constant supply of material enjoyment. In fact, it works the opposite. It increases. Let me read more. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is also called Mathunya Agra, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of material existence of living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually the so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Okay. So this is the conclusion of our Vedic scriptures, that the tendency for living entity to enjoy his senses or sense gratification is actually the cause of suffering in the long run. And you can see from the people in the world, like how that this is very much valid. Okay. So next we will discuss, now he will talk about where these enemies are sitting in our heart, because okay, now we know that who is our enemy: lust, anger, greed. These are an enemy, but just by knowing our enemy is not enough. We need to know where are they residing so that we act. So Lord Krishna is not telling what are the sitting places of this. So see here, the senses, mind, intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So this is not easy, because these are all subtle things: senses, mind, intelligence. This is where this greatest enemy, lust, is residing or conquering us. And when our mind and intelligence gets polluted by lust, so then we are driven to do all nonsense things, and the real knowledge gets covered, because soul is pure, right? It has all the knowledge, all the happiness, everything, because it's part and parcel of the supreme soul. So we acquire all those qualities from Lord Krishna, who is the supreme soul, but it gets covered because of soul coming in contact with the material world and material nature. And sitting places of this lust is our mind, intelligence, and senses. Let me read a little bit about this one too. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places, so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities of the senses, and thus, when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and senses become the repositories of lust. Mind is very uncontrolled mind is the worst enemy. It's also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy, but if the mind gets controlled, then it can become your best friend. You may have heard this. So mind is always coming up with a lot of ideas. Okay, let's do this, let's do that. It doesn't want one. Have you seen monkey? It keeps jumping. A monkey cannot sit in one place for long. Similar is the mind. It keeps jumping around, keeps producing, keeps thinking. And one of the things is it keeps making ideas. Now, if you are engaged with the people who are materially minded, then mind works like that. Okay, let me also get this. Okay, let me also do this. And then, so mind's function is to constantly produce ideas. Now, it's the intelligence. Mind means man, intelligence, buddhi. Intelligence function is to filter. This is right, this is wrong. Filter. It's a filtering mechanism. Intelligence is considered higher than mind. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful. So intelligence is the one. If once intelligence gets polluted, then it's gone corrupted, because now he has lost. So intelligence is like a gatekeeper. It filters out all the bad things and only takes good things for a good person. But if it becomes polluted, then you lose. For example, if your gatekeeper is itself gets corrupted, then you lose the sense of what is right, what is wrong. So here, lust even corrupts the intelligence. That's what Krishna is saying. The intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, thus with the mind and senses. Okay. So then the spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of spirit soul is explained in Bhagavatam. Okay, here. A human being who identifies this body made of 3 elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of earth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge, is considered like an ass or a cow. Okay. So here, when intelligence becomes polluted, then because of lust, and it becomes lusty, then spirit soul becomes addicted to material senses, and little happiness which is coming, it considers that as the ultimate happiness, and it mistakes that, and that keeps him binded to material world and also makes him do sinful acts. Okay, so this is so then Arjuna, Krishna is talking about that to Arjuna. He's saying, therefore Arjun, best of all, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Saying you have to conquer this lust. You have to destroy this enemy of knowledge and self-realization. Okay, so it's a little bit of sense control, and then we discuss how to curb this thing. So this is the different degrees. Like working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than senses. Intelligence is still higher than mind, and the soul is even higher. So we have to basically get ourselves aloof from all this material things, because we are the soul, right? Soul is the highest. Like we should be in command of all these material things, not that other way, that material, this mind and intelligence, which are material, are taking command and dictating us. So we should be dictating mind and intelligence and our senses. that this is the way I want to lead my life. This is the way, you cannot dictate me, right? So we have to regulate our activities, because the way it's designed is that soul is higher even than intelligence. But somehow for 99.9% people, they are driven by their mind, and like corrupted mind and corrupted intelligence, driven by the lust. And that's why they are forced to act helplessly to do all the sinful activities. So then he's saying, thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. That concludes this chapter. So here Krishna says that it's by spiritual intelligence. You cannot conquer this lust by material intelligence. Like, you have to take help of bhakti yoga or spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness. And only by that strength of spirituality, you can conquer this lust. Okay. This is the sum and substance. Now we'll go back and look at how this lust, there is a reference of this lust in chapter 2 also. Just let me go. Yeah. So 62 and 63 are talking about again these things. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangas tesu pajayate sanga sanjayate kama kamat probho bhi jayate. So when contemplating the objects of senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust arises anger. Because when we have a material lot, when we engage with a lot of objects of senses, or we contemplate, or we meet with these people who only wants to basically progress materially, then automatically our consciousness gets polluted, and then we basically develops attachment for acquiring those material things. Okay, that is the cause of lust. Okay, that is the cause of lust, that attachment. And when that material desires remains unfulfilled, then it transforms into anger. And what does anger do? Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti brahmasad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashas pranasyati. So from anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. We lose our memory, like buddhi nash, say buddhi nasho. Buddhi nasho means our memory or intelligence gets completely bewildered. And when the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Okay, so this everything is starting from lust. So now let's discuss how to overcome this. So all of you understand the cause of anger, greed, lust, because knowing is important, because unless we knows this, it's very, very difficult to overcome. Any questions so far? Let me see the chat. Okay. Any questions? Yes, no? Are you all following?
Yes, Prabhuji. Following.
Yes. So, like, so if you have noticed, like, let me talk about now something practical. Now we understand theoretically what is the cause of anger. So if you notice why anger comes, because sometimes we have expectation from other person, and when those expectations are unfulfilled, and that person does not do as we want him to do, then the anger comes, right? Immediate outburst comes that why this is not happening. Or sometimes people become angry with their life also because they have certain expectations in the life that I should be getting this or I should be like this. And when those expectations or desires remains unfulfilled, then person becomes frustrated. And that frustration results into the angry, right? For example, someone who is trying very hard to get a job, but no matter how hard he tries, he's not getting the job, right? So he gets frustrated with the life, and normally his behavior is like he will, with a slight pretext, his outburst will happen, like he will become angry. So the root cause of all is these desires, right? So now how to overcome? So Krishna is telling that we have to spiritualize our desires. First thing, we have to understand that whatever is happening in our life, good, bad, is happening because of our past karmas. As I was telling last time also, sometimes if someone, let's say we go to a gathering and someone criticizes us or says bad about us behind the back or maybe in front. So we have to understand that Mother Nature is kind of punishing us through that person and making us feel bad. Okay, so this is the way to cut or not react to that situation. Normal tendency would be कि किसी ने हमको बुरा भला कहा, हमने immediately उसको retaliate किया और उसको वापस से उसको बुरा भला कहा, and then he will say further more things and we will say further more things, bad things, and then it may end up in fight. Sometimes it happens verbal fight, or it may happen physical fight also. All of you have seen, right? And it go on. So what is happening? Because of our some of the past life karmas, this person comes into our life or some as a friend or something, and then he's criticizing us. But we have to understand that this person is not doing it. It's our previous karma. हमारा previous life का karma है. Nature or Lord is using this person as a medium to make us suffer. अगर हम इस तरह करेंगे, then we will remain happy, because then we will not retaliate and we'll just take it and then move on, right? The moment we retaliate and says something bad to that person, he will further retaliate, says, and that creates new karmas, right? And then we become always disturbed, and that person becomes disturbed, and that feeling of what is that feeling called enviousness or hatred enters into heart for that other person. Now, the problem with this feeling of hatred or enviousness for others is that we will keep the grudge for that person in our heart for our lifelong, for our whole life, and we'll not talk to that person. And the problem is that person will again come in our life in next life, because we haven't settled the account in this life, right? If we leave the world keeping the grudge in our heart, and the other person also leaves the world, and that, so again in the next life we have to meet that person, and again maybe next life we will be given Mother Nature will use us to retaliate, and we will say something bad to him. So this cycle keeps on and on. So we have to stop this cycle. So an intelligent person, that's why an intelligent person does not have any enemies, or he does not keep grudge from anyone, because this grudge or this feeling of anger keeps one in the material world, because you have to keep coming again and again. Sometimes that person even comes in our life as a very near one or dear one, like as a husband wife we have seen, and that husband wife will then quarrel a lot, and then they will end up in a divorce, right? So these all kinds of things we have seen. That's why so what we have to do is not, one of the ways to conquer this anger is keeping quiet. If we are in a situation where let's say we are getting criticized, or so, and naturally, because we are not yet there spiritually, we are not that much elevated, that anger itself doesn't come. Anger will come, But then if you keep quiet in that situation for a minute, then anger will subside and go away. And that will save us from a lot of troubles in life, because if you see, it says anger destroys your intelligence. And where your intelligence are destroyed, then you don't know what's coming out of your mouth, right? Because you lose the control in the anger. One loses the control over himself, because he loses his anger. His intelligence is taken over by anger. And then in that mode, someone may say something really bad, which you will basically then we repent that why did we say this to that person. But then the bad, like you say, like when the arrow has been shot from the bow, it cannot be taken back. So, and same way, if the words have gone out of our mouth in the moment of heat, no matter how hard you try, you cannot rectify that situation. So best way is to remain quiet if you can. And then I know when we remain quiet in that situation, inside our heart, we will feel a lot of heat. Lot of heat gets produced. Heat of, you can say, revenge or whatever, like some uncomfortable situation happens. And that heat actually purifies one internally. Because if you see the life of our great sages, even Lord Krishna has this cousin called Shishupal, right? And Shishupal used to abuse Lord Krishna. So, and he was his cousin. So Lord Krishna gave the promise to his mother that I will forgive him for 100 offenses. Okay, so I will forgive him, but after that, I cannot take guarantee. So Shishupal always used to abuse Krishna, and Krishna will not say anything. He'll just remain quiet and just take that abuse and just move on, right? All of you may have seen Mahabharata, how Shishupal was saying so many bad things. And same thing happens to a lot of other, all Krishna's enemies like Jarasandha, all they were Duryodhana, or all these people, they were making fun of Lord Krishna, that he's a Gwala, he's a this thing, that thing, he's considered like that. Even though he's the Supreme Lord, but they were making fun of him and abusing him in a lot of. So Lord Krishna is showing this by his own example, how to handle these situations, right? So one of the ways to conquer anger, is to remain quiet in that situation and not react immediately. Later, you can talk to that person that, see, this was not required, your outburst, like, and you can explain them. And that way, that person becomes also calm and would be in a better situation to listen to you. But if both of you people are angry, and this can happen between husband, wife, two friends, this situation comes very often in lives, in any situation, but mostly it happens between two people who are too familiar with each other. Because when there is a too much familiarity, then we say too much familiarity brings contempt, right? Then people basically go step and then try to criticize. When there is not too much familiarity, there is little bit of, you can say, formality. And in that formality, people don't cross their lines and don't criticize. So most often, 99%, this situation happen with our closed ones, right? So practical way is to let go that situation, remain quiet and not react immediately. Later, you can talk to that person, and that way you saved yourself from creating new karmas by criticizing other. Like in spiritual life, tit for tat doesn't work actually. In material life, you may think, okay, if you have to handle the other way, is basically seeing that why this person is doing or criticizing me. So seeing this, that हमारे जो previous life के जो sins हैं, they are getting destroyed. So we have to see कि Bhagwan is so merciful that instead of punishing us by going through, let's say, bad health or accident, he is sending someone who is criticizing us, and by doing that criticization of us, or disrespect for us, our past sinful reactions are easily getting eradicated. So won't it be better that we just hear and absorb, or just that disrespect or bad behavior, or hear some abuse, rather than actually have to go to suffering by going through a big accident, or falling ill, or going through a terminal illness like cancer or this time. So we should be grateful that, okay, Lord Krishna is sending this person who is abusing us or doing bad to us. And that way, our sinful reactions are getting nullified. Okay. So whenever anything bad happens in our life, understand that this is because of our past sins, past life, bad karmas, and our sinful karmas are getting removed. Okay. So this is the way to handle situations where there is a natural tendency to be angry. Other thing is performing this Harinam Sankirtan, Harinam chanting, japa, Naam Jap. Because when we chant the names of the Lord, and I'm not talking about one or two names, like frequently every day when we chant, slowly, these qualities go away from our heart. It gradually goes away, but you will see the impact within first month itself. If you start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, Naam Jap. So Naam Jap is the primary means of devotional service. And this helps us. This basically purifies the heart of all these unwanted things. Have you seen a filtering system, purification system, water purification system? It purifies the water, and then we drink. Same way, when we do a Naam Jap, then it purifies the heart and it makes it soft. Our heart becomes soft, and we get rid of this greed, anger. Immediately, you will see a sense of satisfaction within yourself when you start chanting the names of the Lord. You will feel satisfied with whatever Lord has given in life, and you are content, and your focus shifted from material advancement to spiritual advancement, right? And when that happens, then you redirect all your energies towards the spiritual path, towards making progress in the spiritual path, because you now understand that I cannot improve my material situation. Whatever is given to me materially is by the will of the Lord, is based on my prarabdha, is based on my previous karmas. So I cannot change that. No matter how hard you try, you cannot enjoy an iota of more material happiness than what you are destined for in this life. Okay, so when you cannot change your material situation, then what's the point of working so hard and still trying to endeavor to better your material situation, right? When one comes to this realization, then he redirects all his energies to make progress on the spiritual path, because spiritual path is beyond the realm of any of the material things. That's completely in our hand, because Lord Krishna has given every one of us a free will, a little free will, that how we want to lead our lives. Either we can always serve the Maya and remain entangled in the material things, or we can serve Lord Krishna, and by doing that, we go out of the clutches of Maya and become servants in the hands of Lord Krishna. And the later path, serving Krishna, is when one progresses on this path, then he gets so much happiness from within that he loses the taste of material attraction. Automatically, that taste for material things automatically goes away. You do not even have to endeavor any doing thing. It automatically gets, because you are now experiencing the higher taste of bhakti rasa. So obviously the lower taste of material things automatically goes away. You don't want to do that thing again. Okay. So chanting of the names of the Lord is the best means to overcome this lust, anger, greed, pride, all these unwanted things which are present in our heart, and which are also considered as a stumbling blocks, and they are also mentioned in Shastras as the gateway to hell. If these are not checked, then they can drive person to wrong path, and one can do a lot of sinful things which makes one to go to the hellish planets. And there, depending on the severity of your sinful acts, one may have to suffer for thousands and thousands of years in hellish planets before one can get opportunity to again come back in the material world. So we have to be very, very careful with how we lead our lives, because as I was saying, human life is very, very rare. Imagine, you can see around, so many living entities are present. If you dig a 6x6 hole in the earth, like we have 6 billion population in the whole world. Now, if you dig a 6x6, 6 foot by 6 foot hole, in that hole itself, you can find more than 6 billion insects, small bacteria creation. So imagine how much is their population, how much like living entities are just roaming around, like bacteria, small insects like this. You see, and every of them is a living entity, and we have gone through that cycle already. After going through that cycle of 8.4 million species is when we come to this topmost species of human life. And within that human form, we should be very, very, very fortunate that we come to this level of consciousness that we are able to read Bhagavad Gita and associate with devotees. And we had this intelligence, and Lord has chosen us. Bhakti Devi has chosen us to practice on this path, right? Because this is based on our previous life of piety. Even though we may be having a lot of hardship in our material life, but we have done something good in our previous life, which has created this path where Lord Krishna and Bhakti Devi has chosen us as the few chosen ones to practice this. Otherwise, the rest of the whole world, you can see yourself where they are going, right? So then all we have to do is just take the shelter of Lord Krishna and his devotees and follow this process. This is a very scientific process, and Srila Prabhupada made it more practical, scientific by, in his books, he has explained the whole process. Process starts with little faith. All of you have faith, that's why you are here. And then after you have a faith, which is Shraddha, next is Sadhu Sangha, which is engaging with the saintly minded people who can guide us on this path. That's very, very important. Sadhu Sangha. And next comes Bhajan Kriya. Then when you engage with the sadhus, the saintly people, they will direct you how to progress on this path, and they will engage you in the bhajan. Bhajan means all this is we are doing is bhajan. Like when we are discussing about Bhagavad Gita, this is bhajan. When you are going to a temple, bhajan. What we have to do is make our whole life bhajan. That way we'll always be happy. So the start of bhajan is to Shravan and Kirtan, listening and chanting. Listening is happening, chanting you have to do on your own. So those who have not yet started chanting, my humble request is to start and take it seriously. Sometimes we become lethargic in performing our chanting because we still do not have taste for it, right? So in the beginning, that's why it's called regulated bhakti, sadhana bhakti, because we have to push our senses to perform, because we are not getting taste. Why we are not getting taste? Because we are in a diseased condition. Imagine like someone who is having a disease called jaundice. Even if you give him a sweet halwa, he will not feel it tasty because he's in a disease condition. So that same sweet halwa will taste him bitter because of that jaundice. But as the jaundice goes down, he will start feeling the sweetness of that halwa. Similarly, right now we are kind of in a jaundice where we have lost the taste for the spiritual things. So when we chant Hare Krishna mantra, it will not taste as sweet, even though it's much sweeter than halwa, but it won't taste sweet in the beginning because we are in disease condition. But that chanting of Hare Krishna mantra itself will cure us, and then we start feeling the sweetness, and we start feeling the we start becoming attracted wherever Krishna Katha is happening, wherever Lord's pastimes are discussed, wherever Bhagavad Gita is discussed, wherever Srimad Bhagavatam is discussed, we will feel natural attraction. And then as we practice more and more and more, you will reach a stage where you cannot live without a single day taking the holy name or hearing about Lord Krishna or hearing about his pastime. That's the stage where all of us should aspire to reach, which is called the stage of Prema Bhakti. from the stage of regulated, meaning we have to reach to a stage of prema bhakti. So at that stage of prema bhakti, everything will happen spontaneously, naturally, right? So spontaneous, like that when we take today, breathe in, breathe out, it's happening naturally. Do we need to endeavor to, okay, I have to breathe now, I have to breathe out, breathe in, and I have to breathe out? No, it's happening naturally. Similarly, bhakti will become natural. It will happen every day. But in the beginning, we have to make little endeavor, little bit, because right now our senses are all polluted, contaminated with all this lust, anger, greed, and they don't allow us to engage our senses to experience that happiness which one gets in practicing the Harinam. So all of us should start and practice. And initially, you have to make the way to progress on this path is to make a vow. Okay, that I will chant this many number of rounds. And if I don't chant, then I will punish these senses which are prohibiting me to chant. When you deprive your mind and your senses of the things that they want, then they will abide by you. So you have to distance yourself, because we are all souls, and these are all material things which we are kind of encased in: mind, intelligence, false ego, and all this. But we are not actually mind, intelligence, false ego. But we are kind of, right now, because we are conditioned, we are being dictated by this mind, intelligence, false ego. So we have to distance ourselves and tell to them, mind, intelligence, false ego, and my senses, that you are not gonna get food until you cooperate with me in chanting 4 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra. Once I chant 4 rounds of Bhagavad Gita, that's when you are gonna get food. Once you do that, believe me, your senses, your mind, intelligence, everyone will cooperate with you, because they won't remain hungry for long, and then they will start cooperating. So initially makes like these small goals. Okay, that unless I complete my rounds, I'm not gonna have breakfast. Unless I complete this much, I'm not gonna sleep today. I'm not gonna have. Prabhupada used to say, if you like, one day, once one person came to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, you look, I'm so busy, I do not have time to chant my round. So Prabhupada says, did you find time to eat? You say, yeah. Then he say, like, if you can find time to eat because you are enjoying eating, then why can't you find time to chant? So they say, like, okay, from tomorrow, don't tell your senses that you don't sleep unless you complete your rounds. So that way, senses cooperate. Your senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, your eyes, ears, everyone will cooperate with you. And then that's the way to progress. And once you make it little rigid, like with them, and handle them like that, and don't basically go away. Like sometimes mind will say, okay, leave it now, I'm too tired, I'm this, that. Like it will send this signal. You say, no, you have to say, no, I have taken a vow, I have finished this round, and then only I can take my food, or I will sleep today, right? So like that, one has to progress, and then see how you will see miracle in your lives. Already we had few devotees here who can attest or to this path, who are following this for last 3-4 years. We have Venkat Prabhu here, right? Venkat Prabhu, you want to say something? Did this process working for you and your family?
Yes, Prabhu. I think it's changed a lot in our family life. That's what I think. As you mentioned, right? It's a dedication required. Can you hear me, Prabhu? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's initially like it may, the faith will be less like in compared to, but it's a practice. You need to make it. That's where the faith will become increase slowly. But initially, like, yeah, so it's working. Yeah, it
It's been 3 years now, right? For you, 3 to 4 years.
3 years, so 3.5
years.
years.
And have you changed a very positive, or you are still same as 3 years back, or is completely now you are a changed person?
It's a change person, Prabhu, as my experience.
Yes.
It's compare back to 4 years, 3 years, right? There are
Mm.
a lot of things changed within family, within the kids, right?
Yes.
even in the personal life, professional life, right? So there's
Yes.
a lot of things.
Yes, that's good. So one of the characteristics of devotional service is it brings a lot of auspiciousness in this life. It's Shubh. It brings a lot of auspiciousness in your life and removes away all the negative things on your life. So when you start bhakti, automatically all the negative people, all the negative energy goes away from you, from your home, even from your friend circle. All the people who are negative, they will go away, and all the positive, all the like-minded people will enter in your life in the form of devotees. This is what Krishna does by first making sure that you have a good association, right? And then all the unwanted things goes away, like the habit of drinking liquor, smoking, or eating non-vegetarian food. You do not have to endeavor. It automatically goes away. And Prabhu again can attest to this path, right? So before joining, you were, I guess you were non-vegetarian, right? Did you have to make a
Yes,
lot of effort to get that, or once you start chanting, automatically you lost taste for that?
I feel it's natural, Prabhu. Once you taste the higher, right?
Yes.
As it ultimately becomes slowly, right? So you will get to once you get to taste the higher one, right? So like
Hmm.
Krishna consciousness,
Hmm.
it will reduce automatically.
Right. So you see,
So
he,
Sujata was also shared, Prabhu.
yeah.
Do you want to hear from her?
Sujata ji, okay. Yes, Mataji, what do you have to say? Oh, not, we are not able to hear you. No, Venkat Prabhu, you are able to hear.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, now very well.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Since we are practicing bhakti since 3 years, we changed a lot. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, go on.
Actually, Krishna consciousness changed us a lot, Prabhu. Because in the beginning we used to eat meat, and we are having material enjoyment every
Hmm.
weekend. We are going out.
Hmm.
Now we don't feel like going out, and without just chanting, I feel like day is too long. If I finish my chanting in the morning, I feel very
Hmm.
light. Um, I
Yes.
feel like the day is running fast. If I don't chant in the morning, if I don't finish my rounds, I feel like the day is very long
Yes.
and it's very hard. It's the thing is keep running in my mind. Oh, I didn't finish my chanting today. I didn't finish my chanting today. It's even I am at work.
Hmm.
The thing is running in my mind.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
So chanting makes very difference.
Correct.
When we feel chanting, we don't. No, eventually we will get a taste of the Harinam.
Hmm.
So yes, our mind is getting around, like getting running around while we are chanting. I hope in the future we will get more conscious, like more concentrate on the chanting. Um, so yes, Prabhu. Definitely, chanting helps a lot. We can connect to the God directly by chanting.
Yes. Yes.
Especially in the morning, chanting is very effective.
Yeah. Very nice. So you see, like we had one family whose life already changed, and I can see the change in your life, your kid's life. So we all can attest to this. That process works. Only thing we have to have a faith and continue following this. Like I have been following this for last 15 years. Started in 2008, and I can say for myself also completely changed.